So I decided I wanted to make a guide on how to play Sona, like all of her basics and all that cool stuff, since it's probably my most played champ in solo queue, and I think Sona is exceptionally powerful, if you know how to use her correctly. So I decided that why not make a good Sona guide, just because of the fact that I don't see a lot of Sona guides on YouTube, and I feel like I have a lot to share in terms of how to play Sona correctly, and just like some tips and tricks kind of thing. So hopefully, if you like this, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new here. Try to do some content like this every week. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into the training tool. Okay, so for Sona runes, what I like to do is I run two different pages. So the first page that I will run in most cases is I'll go Summoner Airy. Summoner Airy is just really good because of the shield, and you practically just proc it every time you shield someone or heal them. I go Mana Flow Ban because Sona is really mana hungry, so it's really good to have. And then I'll go Transcendence and Scorch for the extra damage. Transcendence because it gives you that ability haste, and we want to be able to spam our abilities, so that's what I'll do. And then for my secondary, I will go well, I used to go Inspiration, but since they nerfed Comic Insight, taking away the ability haste or whatever, I go Presence of Mind and then Cut Down for the extra damage. Presence of Mind is just really good to have, because it gives you that mana regeneration. And then for these down here, I like to go the extra ability haste because I just like to spam my abilities later on into the game. But you could opt for double offense and then armor. Now, if I'm going against something that, is threatening, so, like Samira, Pantheon, Nautilus, basically any of your pool champs or really hard CC champs, like Leona, those tank ones, I'll run Guardian. Guardian is pretty good, especially in this current meta. And then I will run Shield Bash, Bone Plating, and then Revitalize. Bone Plating is just super good because if you're going against like one of those, like, again, hard tank champs, or for say like you're going against like a Blitzcrank or a Thresh and they pull you, your chances of survival are going to be really high just because Bone Plating, mitigates the one-shot potential. So yeah, I take that because it's really good. And then for the secondary, again, I'll run Presence of Mind and Cut Down because Presence of Mind is just so good to have. And then again, same thing with these. I'll go offense, this and this, but again, you can run the double offense if you want. But yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into a game, and then I'll show you a couple things that people might not know about Sona. So first thing I want to show you, usually when you typically start in the game, I also don't know why I'm lagging. I like to run Spell Thieves if I think it's going to be an easy lane for me to land poke. So like for example, if I'm going against like those, I mean, I guess it really just depends on like how you like to play. So for example, if I'm going against like a Leona or like those champs that can land their CC through minions, I don't really like to go Spell Thieves that much. I like to go Relic Shield because if you walk up as Sona against a champ like that, they can just, like Leona, she could literally just E you through the wave and then you just die, So, in cases like that where the all-in potential is really high, I'll go Relic Shield. Just to help my ADC clear waves, and to farm safely. But if I'm going against something a little easier, something that I can poke without too much, like, threat of being engaged on, so again, your Yumis, Sorakas, basically any champ that you can dodge CC through the minion wave, or something like that. So even if I'm going against like a Nautilus or a Blitzcrank, I'll take Spell Thieves because their CC is so easy to dodge just standing in the minions. So I'll take Spell Thieves because it's really easy to poke them down. But again, it's just like personal preference. So You know, like you take this if, you know, you're running against one of those really threatening lanes like Samira, Pantheon, Click CC, anything like that. And then this if you are going against like another Enchanter support or something. Yeah, so I'll just take this, some pots. Again, I start off with 2 pots, and then this, and then, you know, classic forward. And then what I like to do, I'll go Q, I'll start Q, I'll level W, then E, so level 1, 2, 3 is Q, W, E. I'll put 3 points into Q. Let me just put a thing down. I haven't used these in so long. So what I'll do is I'll put a point into Q, then W, then E, and then I'll put 3 points into Q. So you'll have your Q with 3 points in it, only because usually with like poke abilities like this, you want to put 3 points into whatever your poke ability is. So, you know, your poke ability will do some kind of damage. Then once you kind of put 3 points into the poke ability, the Q, then I go ahead and max W. And then pretty much after I max W, it's so late into the game that it's not worth maxing Q. So I'll go with the E max second and then Q last. Just because at that point in the game, you know, around the 20-30 minute mark, you're more useful in the back, you know, giving your team the buffs and healing and shielding and, you know, all that jazz. So yeah, so that's what I'll do. Let me go ahead and level myself up. Let me get myself some gold, and then level myself up to level 18. Okay, so let me show you. So remember, I'll do 3 points into Q. I'll max my W, then I'll max my E, because at that point, you know, you're more useful in the back of your team rather than in the front. You know, just giving the buffs. It's better if you stay alive later on in the game. And then first thing that I want to talk about Sona that I think a lot of Sona players actually either they don't know or they don't utilize enough, is her passive. And honestly, I think her passive is probably the best passive in the whole entire game. Just why I think she's so overpowered. So look at her passive, right? So after using 3 basic abilities, Sona's next attack deals an additional 243 magic damage and has an additional effect based on the song Sona last activated. So basically, after using an ability, you get your charges are below the health bar, so that's 1 charge. I'll use another one, that's 2 charges, and then that's 3 charges. So whenever the 3 things show a color, that's what your next effect will be on your auto attacks. So for example, mine is purple, so I'll get my E passive, the passive from my E on my next auto attack. So the passive from my E is the 3rd one, where it says Song of Celerity. The target is slowed by 41% for 2 seconds. So if I hit this dummy with my next auto attack, you see how the auto attack is purple? It'll do an additional damage and slow them for 41%. That's why, you know, when I'm playing Sona, I actually keep track of what color my passive is, because, you know, just depending on what I want to use it for in a certain situation. The next one is her Q, which is really, I think it's really common. A lot of people use this one probably the most, is the poke one. So after you use your Q 3 times, I should probably have this on. Okay, so after using, now my passive is blue. So whenever I auto attack them, it'll do an additional 243, and on top of that, 341. And then on top of that, it'll do the 107 from the basic ability. So when I auto attack them, you'll see, like, usually it's like boom, boom. You see how much HP that just did? I queued them and then auto attack them, so it does like an additional like 600 damage. So that's like the most used one when poking with Sona, like during the laning phase, which is really good. Also, Q is really good against taking like objectives, so like towers and stuff. If you use your 3rd Q, or if you use your Q passive on towers, it takes them down pretty quick, like if you're trying to siege with your team. And then the last one, which I think is probably the most broken thing in the entire game, is her W passive, which I think is probably what people don't know a lot about or don't use as often as I think they should. Okay, so what this one does, it's Area of Perseverance. I think I said that right. The target deals 26% less damage for 3 seconds. So it acts as an exhaust. And I know it says 26% here, but actually as you get later into the game, that number increases. It's low because I don't have any items. So like here, I'll go and buy some items and I'll show you just how insane it gets. I'll just buy some items now and then I'll explain later on what I'm buying and why I buy it. Okay, so like if I go look back at it now, it's at 35%. And again, that number will increase because, you know, my support item isn't finished, but so yeah, that number increases, and I think is really, really broken just because of the fact that it's the exhaust in the game gives you what, 40%, right? Yeah, so it reduces their damage for 40%, and it's on what, 190 seconds is, I can't do math. I think that's like what, 3 or 4 minutes or something. So literally her W passive does 5. In this case, it's obviously more. It actually gets it gets bigger than exhaust later on in the game when you're playing, and you know, obviously you have a finished support item. It gets 240%. I think it's so broken because it's on a 3-second cooldown. So literally, if you have all the items, you know, you have the cooldown reduction and all that stuff, you can literally just spam your abilities like this. Here, I'll show you what it's like. Realistically, let me just upgrade her ult, and then I'll explain that later too. So literally, this is with no auto refresh, right? So I can Q, W, E. I mean, most of the ones you're going to be using are your W and your E. So you can see, like, literally my most main abilities are on the 3-second, 4-second cooldown. And it's super, super good, especially in team fights when you're fighting with your team. So you could literally use your W passive every 3 seconds, which is incredibly broken, especially in this this meta that we're dealing with right now with all the assassins and, you know, just like bruisers and tanks and stuff. Sona is super, super good at shutting down people, you know, like with their damage and stuff. And if you take exhaust with Sona on top of the other exhaust that's built into her kit, it's incredibly broken. You know, like I've done this many times where I double exhaust like a Zed, for example, and he just does no damage at all. And then he gets really confused, you know, he just starts flaming me in all chat. Why do I do no damage? You know, like, what's going on? So yeah, it's just really super, super broken. But anyways, yeah, so cooldown reduction is Sona's best friend. Also, another really, really good tip about Sona, or maybe something you didn't know, is the passive on her ultimate. So what her ultimate does is every time you level up her ultimate, it actually reduces the cooldown of her basic abilities every time you level up her R. So I think at level 1 it's like 10%. Yeah. So when you upgrade her R the very first time, you get a passive off of her ult, and it reduces her basic abilities by 10%. And then when you level up it again, it's 25%. And then if you get to level 18, if you ever get that far in the game, it's at 40%. So you're basically having the 40% cooldown reduction from my R on top of whatever cooldown reduction you're building already. So that's why it's incredibly insane. It's broken. So that's why I'm a big advocate for building cooldown reduction on Sona. I always have been, always. Another thing that I'm going to talk about, I guess I can probably start going into like itemization for Sona and stuff. So what I tend to do is I will actually rush into a tier of the goddess as soon as I can. And I know there might be a little bit there might be some speculation as to whether you should still build this in Season 11, just because of the fact that the shield was removed with Archangels. I honestly think it's still good to build on Sona. It's not as good because, you know, we don't have that shield anymore. But I think it's still incredibly necessary to build on Sona, because I've actually done some testing myself where if I just skip the tier and I just go straight into Moonstone and then all these other support items like Arden, that stuff, it's good because I'll have the cooldown reduction, but it's bad in the sense that you're constantly running out of mana. Constantly. And I know that you have the mana regeneration and stuff, but in team fights, it's a lot better to be able to spam your abilities and have that extra mana pool so you can keep spamming them to wait for your mana to regen before you can use another ability. And it's incredibly noticeable early game. Like, you run out of so much mana early. It's just, I mean, I think it's just terrible. Honestly, I can't. I personally can't play the game without building a tier on Sona. Like, I tried, and it was the worst experience of my life. So yeah. So what I like to do, again, I like to rush a tier as soon as I get 400 gold, and then I will finish my tier into Archangels first, because you gain the most stacks when you have this item fully built. So I'll rush this first item, and then second item I'll go into Moonstone, because I don't really think there's any other good support items at the moment for Sona, but Moonstone is getting buffed next patch, so hopefully that'll be a lot better. So yeah, I'll go this item, and then why is this thing saying AFK? Yeah, so I'll go Archangels into Moonstone, and then third item kind of really just depends on like what your team needs. So like if you have like a Master Yi or a Vayne or something like that, you know, auto attack based champs on your team, I'll rush into an Ardent Sensor, you know, just for the extra attack speed and whatnot. And then, you know, your last item or so, you know, you can choose depending on what you need. I don't really go that Vision Stone item, you know, like the one with the control words, too much. I have tried it. It is nice to have, because, you know, the cooldown reduction. But I think the 40 on top of the 40 is good enough, to be honest. So you can rush like a redemption, or, you know, just again, like whatever your team needs, you know, stuff like that. But I think that is about it in terms of itemization and Sona tips. Basically, just like whenever you're getting far into the game, like 20-30 minute mark, just remember it's a lot better to stay in the back of your team rather than, like, you know, trying to walk up to poke later on in the game. I don't think it's as worth it than staying alive. So like, for example, you know, like, what is this key one? Shift B. Okay. So like, for example, you know, if you have like, you know, 3, and then I don't know what the keybind is for this one, and then you have like, you know, your 3 and your 3. Look at the range of your healing; it's huge. So there's no need for you to stand on top of your team trying to land poke, and, you know, you end up getting one shot because you're standing so far up. You can literally stand all the way back here and still be in range to heal your team. Like, look, I'm under tower practically, and I can still, you know, heal my team. See, like, the range is insane. So yeah, it's a lot better to stand further back in team fights than to be, you know, up here with your team like this. I mean, I guess you can you know, be close to your team whenever you guys are running away, or you guys are trying to rush or siege or whatever, so you can, you know, you can give the movement boost. But in terms of like team fighting, again, it's much better to stand back here and stay alive and buff your team than to be up here and just get one shot. And I know you might be wondering, like, oh, what if they have like a Zed or something, and they just, you know, go straight for me? Which, you know, in that case, you could build like a Zonia's, or, you know, again, you could do like that exhausting I was talking about, you know, where you double exhaust them, and then, you know, you should be okay with that. But yeah, so just a tip for team fighting, because I know I see a lot of Sonas will, you know, be fighting up here with their team, or they'll try to like run up and poke with their Q, when, you know, realistically you don't really do too much damage later in the game, and you're more useful in the back. But yeah, so I think that is going to be about it for how, you know, to play Sona properly and all of my tips. Again, if you like this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you're new here. I do try to provide some helpful content, and you know, just some entertaining stuff. So yep, that's probably gonna wrap it up. But yeah, again, if you liked it, please make sure to let me know in the comments. If there's anything I missed, you can also let me know in the comments if there's, you know, anything that you guys might know about Sona that I didn't mention here. Alright, I will see you guys with my next video.